What is going on, everybody? We are back. We are not AI. We are here live today. Yes, we got a show.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me.
It's lunchtime. What's up, everyone? Jumped in today to do the show. Saw all the chats from yesterday. Huge apology for me. Last minute, I was asked to jump into a meeting and present. And that meeting went 2 hours. There was no way to do the show yesterday. So I frantically jumped in, changed the date of the show, tried to get everything out, tried to get an Instagram post out, all of that stuff. Tried to get all that out, but I see that, Jody, yes, your chat from yesterday is still in here because it's still connected to this broadcast. Jumped in today, checked it all out, tried to get everything out to everybody. My apologies that we weren't here yesterday, but that doesn't happen on the regular, and I'll try to make sure it doesn't happen very much in the future. So we've got Craig in the chat. We got Jody. We got Kenneth the Lap. We got Frida. We've got Ken Walters eating some bison burgers today with avocado and sweet taters. I just was telling someone yesterday that you eat ribeye every day. Now you've called me a liar, Ken. What am I supposed to do now? I thought it was only ribeyes, and here you are eating bison burgers. Yeah, I got to see my first bison in the wild last year, heading out to Montana. Those are some big, big dogs, man. I don't know. I've probably had the meat before. I've tried a lot of different things. I've had elk. I've had moose. I've had bear. I think I've had bison. It's got to be like a really lean burger, right, Ken? Got my partner, Carolyn Prevost, in the house, lesson prepping. I don't know if you guys saw, I can't remember the exact stat, but like her and Jeff Adler are the only people that have finished top whatever in the open over the last 5 years. Can't remember the exact stat, but it's pretty cool. That's elite company right there. Carolyn Prevost, Jeff Adler. Pretty amazing. Frida, it was a smash burger for her with some sriracha mayo, pepper jack cheese, and so on. Like me some sriracha mayo. That's good. Mark Phillips homeschooling a 14-year-old, but he's here. Top 50 over the last 7 years it was. Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, that's pretty elite company. 7 years of consistency. Top 50 in the open. Yeah, huge kudos to you and Jeff, both. Man, that is freaking amazing. Must be something in the Canadian water. Jody's driving. Be safe. 10 and 2. Hands 10 and 2. Come on. Make sure. All right. So let's get into it today. It's a Friday before a 3-day weekend for me. So super stoked about that. Just got out of a meeting where we were redistributed our job duties today. So recovering from that, turned out okay for me, I think. Not ideal, but it's never ideal. So I will take what we get and we'll move on. Earlier this week on Wednesday, and we haven't had a show since then, they announced 26.2 and who are going to be the athletes representing CrossFit at that open announcement. And here you go.
The CrossFit Open starts now. And the Queen Slayer, Lucy Campbell, takes down another one. They are not first off the skier. It is Amy Kringle. Kringle is done and onto the box. Miriam Von Rohr. Someone forgot to tell her she's a rookie. She came out of those blocks like a full-born sprinter. 2, 1, go.
That is one great lineup. Lucy Campbell, Amy Kringle, and Miriam Von Rohr will be your athletes for 26.2. Super stoked about that. The sneaky one in here is, if you guys have not been following closely, is Miriam Von Rohr has won the last two open. The last two. Oh, she is the Colton Mertens of the female division. So great lineup. Super stoked to see them go down, throw down. It's going to be awesome. We've got two great lineups to start open announcements 1 and 2. Now the ball is in CrossFit's court to hit a grand slam and have a great lineup for workout 3. And it's probably going to be at Wodapalooza, I'm assuming. It is going to be at Wodapalooza. So they're going to have a lot of people there to do it. I wonder if it's going to be like a heat of the event, or if it's going to be truly like just pick a couple people to do it. That's going to be interesting how they pull that one off, as it is going to be one of the events at Wodapalooza. It's going to be fun to see. So can't wait to see what they do with that open lineup. Early on, I've got Miriam Von Rohr to win. She wins everything in the open. So, and Carolyn points out here, she has won 3 of the last 6 WODs in the open. Again, just like Colton Mertens. Colton Mertens has won a lot of the open workouts in the last 2 years. So she is very much as savage as Colton Mertens is in the open. And then you've got Lucy Campbell, who took 4th in the open last year. And Amy Kringle, top 15, I think, at least. This is a killer lineup for this. Killer. Uh, 26.3 will have to be short, since volunteers will be allowed to do it as well. Yeah, I mean, no open workout is super long. I shouldn't say no, but yeah, I don't know, Sten, what they're going to do there. Hopefully they give you enough time off where you can just go do it, whatever, regardless of the time. So yeah, it's all lining up. You know, open registrations are way up, which is a great thing. The open announcements that they have released are incredible. I think excitement is growing. Hopefully we can get that foundation, that base set again, for another growth spurt in the sport, and hopefully get through unscathed for a while. I'm curious how teams will do the workouts on week 3 and how they get to set up their stuff. So, Carolyn, the workouts will be released on Thursday. Wodapalooza is individual Thursday and Friday, and then the teams are Saturday, Sunday. So I'm assuming that if they do, I wonder if they're going to make it a team event or just in the individual events. Wayne points out that 26.2 is at an affiliate with 450 members doing the open. Should be amazing. That is ridiculous. There are very few gyms with 450 members, let alone 450 doing the open. Insane. I can't wait to see what Wodapalooza is going to do with it. Hopefully they have a good plan and have been working in depth with CrossFit to make it work out. So we'll see. In addition to this, I wanted to kind of bust this out too. Is I was watching the Spin on Wednesday night. We talked about it briefly on our Tuesday show, where Tyler had put out a video talking about the state of the Open, and that the biggest asset to affiliates was regionals, and that we should find a way to go back to regionals and use the money that they want to hand out gift cards with to supplement the cost of regionals. Jason Bourne has been doing some spy activity for us, and the 26.3 will have its own stage at Wadapalooza. Carolyn says those gyms probably charge an extra $20 on membership, and it automatically goes to their open sign up smart moves. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. When you look at the retention numbers of improvement in the Open, as a gym owner, it's almost worth the investment to just pay the $20. Pay the $20 for your athletes, sign them up, especially with where you could buy in bulk this year. Sign them up. It's $20 a member out of their membership, and then because the retention numbers of people who do the Open multiple times is so high that maybe that is a way that you can retain who you have. But I want to get to the regionals aspect of it and the feasibility of it. You know, Tyler said that one of the best assets that CrossFit ever gave to the affiliates was regionals, and I do not disagree. Every regionals I attended, and granted, I was spoiled. I live in the Central East. I was a part of the combined North Central and Central East into the Central Regional. Every one of those regionals was jam-packed every single year. It was never in an arena. It was always in a convention center. Now the build-outs were pretty big in both Nashville and Columbus. It wasn't an arena in Cincinnati when it was Central East, and it still packed the house. Is it affordable to do regionals again? And I know they talked about like supplementing it with the 20% that goes to prizes for affiliates from the Open. Take that 20% and lump it into regionals. I would contend, and I'm going to ask some event owners, event runners, would they rather host a regional where they have the ability to host that and foot the bill and make the profits from that, or to continue to do a semifinal? And I think your answers are going to be varied in this way. Someone like NorCal, who has established this festival feel, I think will want to continue on with their festival feel and not limit themselves to a regional. Someone like Wilson Pock, where it is really just the elites competing that weekend, I think would jump at the chance to change the format from an overall semifinal to a regionalized regional competition where you're drawing from the local affiliates to come cheer on their people. And if you can get the buy-in from the third parties to host these types of events, I think it's a no-brainer to go back to regionals. Now, this is just me pondering the idea and not really talking to anybody yet. But over the next week or so, I'm going to start talking to people, and I'm going to find out, like, what would they rather do? Because if you can get the support of third-party event coordinators, knowing that they're going to pull directly from the athletes in the region and the affiliates in the region, would they jump at that chance as opposed to the newer semifinal where it's just, we don't know if people are going to show up. Are they going to withdraw last minute? If they qualified an early one, or do we lose them at this one? Is it worth buying the tickets for this because you don't know who's really going to be there? Where at regionals, it was your shot. It was your one shot. And people knew who was going to be there. And so ticket sales were easier to predict because you knew the lineup before you even got there. Carolyn says it's just so hard to make it to the games now as an indie or a team. People in the younger age groups who used to have a chance to go to regionals don't have a huge chance anymore. Numbers are down. But I think if you recreated that and you gave a goal of making regionals, it gives that intermediate goal of just trying to make it to that regional event and getting to compete on a bigger stage. It's still a semi-local competition because you're in a smaller region, but it's a big enough stage where there's some broadcast, there's some people there doing interviews, and it gives it that I've made it at least this far. Now, I know the elites are going to say that means I've got to perform my best on one weekend. I can't be sick that weekend. All of those things that we've talked about. But we need the whole ecosystem to still be around for you to thrive in this system. And so maybe you have to give up the multiple shots at making the games for the opportunity to grow and have a sport available to you moving forward. Wayne says regionals would be awesome. I do think you would see athletes at the big camps relocating to spread the competition out. The Southeast region would be crazy as is. I mean, that's possible. People did it before. People moved around, but you have to remember in the old regional days, 5 people made it from the regionals, not 3, not 2, but 5. So there were more opportunities at that level. Whether they would go back to that or they still want the smaller field at the games, I don't know. Frida said some athletes will complain about the competition only having so and so many places. I agree with you. People are going to complain about that, but if you don't have a sport there left because nobody's coming to watch anymore, what is that an alternative? It's not. Tristan says the regional system is the best for growth of the ecosystem, hands down. Carolyn, I agree. I just think unless there's something like regionals again, we are losing a huge market of athletes who are going elsewhere for comps like Hyrox because it's achievable and a big competition. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. The regionals does give that opportunity to younger athletes to develop. And because there were like 30 teams per region, you could even go on a team and learn that way, or get your feet wet that way, or experience things that way. Andrew Sten, will athletes be willing to look long-term? People often look at what affects them now. I think that's the problem in a lot of sports. When you look at like labor unrest in the NFL and the OGs are telling the young athletes hang in there during the strike because it means a lot. And then basically the young athletes are spending their money and they need to get back to work to sustain themselves because they weren't disciplined in like saving money, things like that. And it's why the NFLPA doesn't have any strength. because those younger athletes don't have the patience and the ability to wait it out. Hexy Lover, so excited to know how was your first big blowy. Sorry for off the topic, but want to know the joy you hopefully had. It was pretty glorious. But there's a weird side effect to it that I just wasn't expecting. So like I blew everything out and it felt so good and I can breathe so deep. The crazy piece though is there are parts of my sinuses that haven't had air in so long that when I breathe in, it tickles those areas. And then I have to sneeze. And I'm sure that like once like it gets used to like having air in there again, it'll be fine. But right now, like it just tickles when I breathe in real deep into the areas that were so impacted that I'm just forcing myself to sneeze a lot. All right, back to Frida. Andrew, that's the problem with basically the entire society. Yes. Yes, there is no patience. There is no looking at the big picture. It's all about right now. Plant-powered fitness. The question I have is, are the young people in CrossFit, if the average age of a member in the gym is higher, then you will see that in the signups. Yeah, I think though, if opportunities exist for higher end young athletes, you'll see some of them come back to this format. The reason that everything's skewing upward is there are no opportunities for young athletes. I agree with Carolyn on that. Right now, the way it's set up and everything, all these semifinals are invitation only, or you've got to do this qualifier and the spaces are limited and all this stuff. The young athletes are getting pushed to the side and there are no opportunities for them. Or if you do the regionals again, it opens up a big window for younger athletes to have a goal, to make it to regionals, get themselves known, and to move forward through the process of becoming an athlete. And again, I can't wait to talk to some of the event organizers because I do believe that they will enjoy the opportunity of having a regional type event to run. I think they can be more successful with that than the current format. But I will find out over the next few weeks for sure. Before I forget, tomorrow is the last day to get 30% off your Thirdzy order. They are running their self-care 30, and that is 30% off for Valentine's Day. In order to be the best partner you can for your spouse, for your significant other, for your partner, is to be the best person you can be. And the best way to do that is to get a good night's sleep and recover. And you can do that using Thirdzy and get 30% off if you spend $85 at thirdzy.com/jazzy. That's thirdzy.com/jazzy. Use code jazzy at checkout. Get 30% off your order through tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day. Make sure you take advantage of that. It's hard to get an athlete to commit to a 3-year plan to potentially make a semifinal. Yeah, I think the regionals really just sets the goals up in a way that makes sense for a younger athlete, Tristan. To make top 40 in your region is much more doable than the way the semifinals are set up today. Because in semifinals, you have to be the top 20 at this qualifier. You had to have done well last year to get an invite. And the numbers are, you have to finish much, much higher in those instances. Where regionals, just in your area of the world, you have to be one of the 20 or 40 best people in that region. And that is, those numbers are much more doable for a young athlete than what we have set up today. And anybody who can make a semifinal now would walk into a regional of top 40 or 50. Of course. Of course. Of course. Yeah. And I am not the guy that likes to go backward to move forward, but it just makes too much sense not to. I am not the guy typically that says, hey, let's go back to this. But regionals just makes the most sense. Look at the growth in CrossFit during the regionals era. Now, I know there are all these factors. There was the media firing. There was Greg leaving. There was COVID. There was Lazar's death. All of those things since 2018 have happened in addition to getting rid of regionals to mess up what's happened. But I think you have to find something to get us back to a foundation that works. And the one thing that we have control over is to go back to a regionals format. Frida says it's the opportunity that is the appeal here. Yes. Vicky says restore to homeostasis. Exactly. And the other piece that I'm going to talk to Carolyn about this Sunday night, because it's her idea, I just love it and I keep running with it, is in addition to the regional format, you keep quarterfinals. One, it's a great moneymaker. Two, it gives you the ability to semi-create a 5-week open. If you're going back to regionals, you need to take the open 3 weeks and the quarterfinal weekend, mash them together, and those standings are what get you to the regional. It's a more complete test using all of those pieces to then get you to regionals. Instead of scrapping the scores from the open, they carry over to quarterfinals, and then you test doing multiple events in one weekend as part of your test to get to regionals. So step 1, open. Step 2, quarterfinals. Combine those scores. Top 40 in your region, move on to regionals. And there you have a complete online test that moves to a complete in-person test that moves on to the games. And then everything is tested. Everything, we have a nice balanced test across the board. And we keep it local enough where affiliates and people who want to support their athletes can come watch. And it's been demonstrated, if you weren't around in the regional days, it was demonstrated a lot that these gym members would come and it would get so loud. I remember here in Columbus, we had 2 local teams in regionals, and the place got so loud when they were competing. CrossFit Grandview and Friendship CrossFit both competed at regionals, both made it into the top 10 in the final heat, and the place was so loud for the final heat of teams, it was like nothing you have heard since, because nobody comes to watch the teams now. But here, because it's local, because you have members of your gym in it, it gets as loud as the individual event. And the teams bring so many people to the game, so many people to the party. When I was at Syndicate And Haley Adams is there because she's local to Cookeville. The place is super loud. Last year, Austin Hatfield was there, and it was so loud every time Austin took the floor because it was local for him and his gym members. So the evidence is that it still happens. It just happens to a lesser degree because not so many people are not local. David Reed, how many boxes have a competitive team training group? Granville still has it, but I suspect most do not because they didn't have a chance anymore, David. I think that if you bring back regionals, more local affiliates feel like they can get into the mix of a regional event where they couldn't a semifinal event. Wayne says, I remember watching a Teen Sam Quant at Northeast Regional. It was so loud as any comp. Amazing. Yeah. Northwest. You're right. Correction, Northwest. Carolyn, and talking about combining the open with the quarterfinals, and you look at a few videos for the top qualifier athletes like they used to qualify to regionals. For that leaderboard, you combine the scores of only the athletes who do both open and quarters. Correct. David Reed, Grandview has their training group, and you have to hit benchmarks to even train with them. It used to be cutthroat at Grandview, and I'm sure it still is. They're still trying to get teams to the games. But if they had regionals, many more gyms would try to put together teams. Many more. Because it's a realistic opportunity for them to get to regionals. It's not realistic for many of these gyms to make it to a semifinal. And with the super teams, they're not even it's not even worth trying. Ken is asking if Karen is playing hooky today, I believe, not bookie. I don't think she takes bets, Ken. She said she's lesson planning, so I think she's just in an office working on her lesson plan. Frida, regionals was something of a maturing thing for athletes where you got the chance to really test where you are in comparison with the elite. And if you listen to the stories of the athletes that got to go out on the floor and the people they had next to them, like when we did the 100 and some semifinal interviews back in the day, like I would hear stories of, I got to go out on the floor and Katrin Davidsdotter's beside me, or, Rich Froning was in my heat, or so on and so forth, right? You got to go experience things and have that amazing experience of competing on this big stage with the big names. It meant a lot. And that has been completely underestimated. David Reed, I do like the idea of an accumulative score to make the games, make each step of the ladder matter. And it only makes sense, David, because you hear like Dave Castro go, the entire season is a story. Why release that story in volumes and start over from the beginning when you can just keep the story flowing with the scores as well? It totally makes sense when we cut down to a 3-week open. It's so hard to get a complete test. Our friend Larry Young is on here all the time talking about lack of strength test. If you had 3 weeks of the open and a weekend of multiple events in quarterfinals and all those scores get combined, you can throw in a strength event and it doesn't bias it as much. You can do those things and test those things. So it matters. Right now, when you do 3 events and you throw in a strength test, it's too big of a bias to the rest of the testing. But if you have 7 events, 3 from the open, 4 from quarters, now you have a 7-event test that you can truly test who should make it to the next level. I think that truly makes the most sense. And then we look at the cost. Tyler brought it up in his video. Back in the day, it was $1 million to put those on. Hamilton Rhodes was there doing the broadcast for every regional. Now there are people out there that can do the broadcast for much, much less. We don't need to have the big arenas in every regional. There are some regionals that we know are going to draw, and some we know are not. And you can play to the area you're in and right size the event and the location so that it makes the most economical sense. And Carolyn said, really, if you add the online semi, you have even more and a huge complete picture to send the 7 athletes to the games from the online portion. They will have completed all these tests. I agree, but that takes away from my regional approach here. So I agree with you if you're staying with today's format. If you're going with a regional format, I like that the regionals in person with judging is separate because of the way it's done in person. I think online should be one score, in person should be another. I agree with you in the current format. If you're going with the online semi, why not do all the online as one score? But I would like to do away with the online portion of the semifinal, go back to regionals where we have in-person judging to make it more legit and more possible to send the right people to the games. All right, a couple things to wrap up before I head back to work, and that is we found out yesterday that Willie Georges became the first CrossFit athlete to break an hour in a Hyrox event. I know that was a James Sprague goal. So here is my question for James Sprague. Willie Georges is a retired CrossFit athlete. Does it mean more if James does it as an active CrossFit athlete? Because he's still training for CrossFit and trying to complete the under the hour in Hyrox. Willie isn't trying to make the games. He isn't trying to compete in WFP. He can solely train for Hyrox and see if he can get the under the hour, which he did. Kudos to him. But I think it means more if James goes under an hour while still being an active, competitive CrossFitter. And I say that for Wayne as he's bringing up Hunter. Hunter is no longer a CrossFit athlete. Jody is asking, who is Willie George? Well, it's Georges. He is from France. He was a CrossFit Games athlete 3 or 4 years ago. Probably made the games 4 or 5 times. Was very talented, often injured, and never like podiumed or anything at the games, but made some noise for sure. But he's been retired for a few years now. And because of that, he can focus more on a specific style of training to make his numbers better. Where James can't totally quit strength training because it will affect his CrossFit Games season to then go do a Hyrox under an hour. I think it's more impressive if James does it as an active CrossFit athlete. I think that makes a huge difference. But kudos to Willie Georges for doing it. I don't think it means as much when you're a retired CrossFit athlete as if you're an active CrossFit athlete. Carolyn fills in. Willie Georges has huge numbers in powerlifting, Olympic lifting as well. Very impressive. Last thing I wanted to talk about is Olivia Kerstetter, if you guys did not see, was in the hospital for a staph infection, possible MRSA. And she posted on her Instagram a picture of her in the hospital. I'm going to go ahead and share that. And what she said is, little update because I have been MIA lately. Last week, after a little swelling in my knee, very quickly turned into fever, chills, sweats, lots of pain, and even more swelling. I went into the ER where I was told I had cellulitis staph infection that was thought to be MRSA. Luckily, the infection was not in my bloodstream or in my knee joint, which would have caused a lot more damage. My whole leg continued to grow. My fever would not break. My white blood cell count was way too high, and I could not even put weight on my left leg. I actually had this like 15 years ago. It is one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my life. I ended up spending 5 days in the hospital getting antibiotics to get this to clear. I do not envy her at all. I don't know how this is going to affect her season. Her spot on the fitness wellness continuum is sickness wellness fitness continuum is much higher than mine was at the time. It took me a long time to recover from this, a very long time. And I'm sure because she is much fitter than I was at the time that she will be able to recover from this faster than I did. But it is not fun. It is not easy to overcome. Thoughts and prayers to her to get over this as quickly as possible. And I hope it doesn't affect her CrossFit Games season at all. It is extremely difficult to get through. She said the one thing that she learned on this was probably don't put sweaty, dirty knee sleeves on if you have a cut on your knee. Yeah, be careful, man. If you're cut, be careful what you put on those cuts, man. Nobody wants any of this stuff. Ken said, Jesus Scott, what haven't you had? I wish I didn't have most of this stuff, Ken. It's just what life throws you, and it only makes you stronger on the other side and learn from your mistakes. Shanna said no joint involvement. She should be good. Yeah, I didn't have joint involvement either, Shanna. It just hurt really bad for a few weeks. But again, I was nowhere on the continuum that she is on, so she's probably going to recover and bounce back way faster. This was when I had it. It was before I lost any weight. It was right before I started CrossFit. It's probably one of the catalysts that made me start CrossFit when this happened to me, to get better, to get more fit, to be able to recover from things like this. Yeah, shout out to her. Hopefully she gets better soon. With that said, I hope you guys have a great weekend. We will be live Sunday night, CrossFit Talk with Carolyn and Jamie, talking about all the news in the CrossFit space, getting their ideas as to what some of the stuff we talked about this week and whatever else happens in the upcoming days. With that, I hope you have a great President's Day weekend, as I am off on Monday, but I'll go ahead and do this show. With that, have a great day. You guys get back to work. I'll get back to work, and we'll see everybody tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Sunday night for Sunday Night CrossFit Talk. See you then, guys.